I, the I, the pure consciousness or the sense of self-awareness. I, the pure consciousness or the sense of self-awareness would manifest the words of truth and would manifest the words of wisdom through his finite mind and through his finite body. I, the pure consciousness or the sense of self-awareness would manifest the words of truth and would manifest the words of wisdom through his finite mind and through his finite body. Blessings to be on my listener, whether it's a herself or it's a himself. Blessings to be on my listener, whether it's a herself and it's a himself. Blessings to be on my listener, the one who has uncluttered the unnecessary drama and folk from their awareness, the one who has cleared the confusions, the one who has cleared or trying to clarify the confusions, the one who has cleared the fog, the one who has less duality, the one who has less duality, the one who has less friction in their awareness. So blessings to be on that listener, the one herself or himself. Of course, gender in this whole thing has never been important. I remind you of that time to time. During the week, I received an inquiry that this person made, you see. During the week, I received an inquiry that this person made that they believe that heaven or hell. During the week, this person made this inquiry that they believe that heaven or hell, as you can see the captions, that they believe heaven or hell is rather a physical place. They believe that. It's not that I am believing. I am not the person of belief. I do not believe. I do not disbelieve. I remind you of that time to time too. I do not believe. I do not disbelieve. I am not the person of belief and disbelief. I experience life. I know life and I know truth through what I experience or through my own experience, if you understand what I'm saying to you. So this person, however, made the inquiry that they believe, not me personally, but this person rather made the inquiry that what they believe, and what they believe is heaven or hell is rather a physical place where we are headed after the bodily demise or after we die. If you understand what I'm saying, heaven or hell, they believe, is rather a physical place where we all are headed after the bodily demise or after we die. When we say after we die, personally, I do not believe, again, talking about belief, personally, I do not believe um, in the word if there is such thing as death. Personally, I do not believe if there is such thing as death, but they mentioned the word basically. If you noticed and you have been listening to me for quite a while now, and you know that I do not prefer to use the term death. Rather, I prefer personally and use the word bodily demise, because being a yogi, a fully functional meditator, I personally know that there is no such thing as death. However, the bodily demise, yes. So I use the both terms. I used the word death and I use the word bodily demise. Now, the question rises here, as they say, that they believe the as they say, the question rises here, as they believe that and hell, heaven and hell are the physical places where one is headed after the bodily demise or death. But the question rises here on their question is, we can look at your inquiry in two different ways. We, I mean, we can look at your inquiry in two different ways. We can look at your inquiry through two different perspectives. Perspective number one is that we can look at your inquiry through the eyes of truth. We can look at your inquiry through the eyes of mystic. we can look to we can look to your inquiry through the eyes of wisdom. We can look at your inquiry on the broader scale. We can look at your inquiry on the broadband. If you know, we have mentioned that before, there are two types of bands. Remember the bands? There are two type of bands. One is a broad band and the other one is a narrow band. We are talking about when we look at your inquiry through the eyes of truth, through the eyes of wisdom, through the eyes of mysticism, we realize that if we want to find out the truth ever, if we ever want to know the truth, if we ever want to find out the truth, we need to remain totally impartial if we want to know the truth ever. I remind you of that time to time. If we want to look at the truth ever, if we want to know the truth ever, we need to remember the word remember, that remain, remain totally impartial. We do not choose sides, you see, unlike you. That is the second way, that is the second perspective to look at your inquiry, because you mentioned you believe the mystic, the wise person, the person who really wants to know the truth, the person who is really looking for the truth. The person who really wants to know the truth, the person who is looking for the truth, is not making their mind about anything, is not making their mind about something. The person totally remains open to any possibility. And number two, number two is to look at your inquiry, that we already have made your mind just as you have. You see where I'm going with this. I hope you are following me. That we have made our mind already just like you have. And now we are just looking for the clarification, not the clarification rather, but for the assertion of what we believe. You see, that is the narrow way, that is the narrow band to look at your inquiry. So that is the narrow band to look at your inquiry. That we already have made our mind about something, and now we are just looking for the confirmation. When we already have made our mind about something, then of course we believe whatever we have made our mind about, then of course we believe. And all we then the process, then our process of seeking truth, then our process of looking for truth is does not, that process has stopped. And it does not matter whether now we are looking for the truth or not, because we already believe. Now when we want to know the truth, we do not believe or disbelieve, and hence through that we look and we remain open to any possibility. I always tell you, do not believe or do not disbelieve. So you believe heaven or hell is a physical place of existence where we are headed after the bodily demise or death. Now we are going to look into it profoundly. Now, suppose if somebody is suffering, unfortunately. Now, suppose if somebody, unfortunately, is suffering from depression. You see, this is, as we have talked about that before in previous retreats, that through the perspective of medical science, through the perspective of a separate, through the perspective of medical science, through the perspective of a separate self, when we look at the disorders, unfortunately, which are clinging with people, if you understand what I'm saying to you, through the perspective of medical science and through the perspective of separate self, if we look at the disorders, if we look at the disorders, if we look at these type of illnesses, we realize, if we look at these type of disorders, if we look at these type of illnesses, we realize that these disorders and these illnesses, through the perspective of a separate self, we say these are the behavioral problems or the mental disorder, but through the perspective of reality, through the perspective of the bigger, basically rather bigger scheme of things, if you understand what I'm saying, through the perspective of a rather bigger scheme of things, we realize that this is all karma, and karma can only be transcended. We also realize there is no good or bad karma. If somebody is suffering from depression. The person is unfortunately feeling really, really down. The person is feeling tremendously anxious. The person uh, is either suffering, unfortunately, from anxiety, or the person is unfortunately suffering from the depression. Either way, if the person is feeling down or feeling really anxious, hypothetically speaking, I'm giving you an example basically. Hypothetically speaking, if somehow I physically take the person and put this particular person in a place where the birds, where the everything is extremely tropical, if you understand what I'm saying to you, where everything is extremely tropical, where the birds are flying everywhere, where the things are super tropical, and where the birds are flying, and where the beautiful trees are, where the sun is out, beautiful sand, and a beautiful beach. And if I place this particular person, it doesn't matter who the person is, it does not matter. If I place that particular person in the midst of this tropical place, I hope you are following me. If I place this particular person in the midst of this tropical place, uh, what do you think is gonna happen? I'm trying to make you understand through an example, and the example seems pretty logical. So I'm just trying to make you understand basically through an example. What do you think is going to happen? The person, please keep in mind, the person is already suffering from depression. The person is struggling. Every little motivation, if you understand what I'm saying, every little motivation seems like a workout. Seems every little motivation seems like a big deal. The person is dragging, and the person is suffering from depression. If I place this person while the person is in the state of depression, if I place this person in the midst of this tropical place, what is going to happen is the person is not going to feel the beauty of this tropical place, because it's not about the surrounding of the person. It's not about the tropical place where the beautiful birds are flying, the sun is shining, beautiful sand and beach. It's not about that. It's the inner state of the person. If the person is struggling with severe depression, if the person has no motivation, if the life, unfortunately, or for any reason, if the life, unfortunately, or for any reason, if the life is subsiding, and the sparks of life are not on its prime, otherwise the person is dragging, do you think the person is going to feel the beauty of that place? Example, you know the answer as well as I do. The beauty of that place may have a very small impact, or may have zero impact on that person. Please remember that. I always tell you, remember the word remember. The beauty of that place either is going to have is going to have very small impact, or zero impact on that person. And whatever the impact the beauty of that place is going to have, excuse me, or whatever the impact uh, of the beauty, whatever the impact of the beauty of that place is going to have on this person who is suffering from depression, is going to recede, is going to disappear, is going to dissolve in a very short period of time, if you understand. So the point basically through this example I am trying to make, if you understand what I'm saying, the point basically through this example, I am trying to make, if the person is suffering something from within, the experience of life can only be changed from within. You understand? If a person who is in a state of bliss, if a person who is in an extreme state of joy, a person is in a state of bliss, in an extreme state of joy, in an extreme state of happiness, if the person is, even if the circumstances or the experience generated around that person, I hope you are following, is very troublesome, but the person is in a state of fulfillment. The person is in a state of extreme joy and happiness, even though if the experience around that person is not very pleasant, or it is a very chaotic situation, the person, it would have either very less, just like the first example, but just totally opposite. It would either have very less impact on that person, or it would have zero impact of the chaotic situation or the troublesome experience of that person, because person is in a state of fulfillment. Person feels complete, and the person feels fulfilled. The person feels there is no search for happiness is necessary. So the person is in the state of bliss, and the person is in the state of joy. You see what I'm saying? So the point through these two examples that I am making is heaven or hell is is going, hypothetically speaking, for example, even if we accept your argument, I'm saying hypothetically speaking, for example, even if we accept your argument that heaven or hell is a physical place, or heaven or hell is a place which exists something out there, even if we accept that, not that we are going to accept, because we are looking at it through the eyes of mysticism and through the eyes of truth, but I am saying hypothetically, and something which exists out there outside of the being. You see, that's the word I'm looking for. Something which, that's the statement I'm looking for. Something which really exists out there, hypothetically outside of the being. And if the being is miserable, if the being unfortunately is struggling with some karma, if the being is struggling with disorders, if the being is feeling hungover, if the being has a really uh, irksome disease, if the being has a very frustrating state of the being, whatever we want to call it, if we place such a, if we take the being basically and place such a being who is struggling with just about anything and everything in heaven, we says hypothetically, we accept what you are claiming, we, that person cannot acknowledge the beauty of heaven. The person cannot acknowledge the beauty of experience. The person cannot acknowledge the, cannot admire the beauty, cannot unfortunately appreciate the beauty of heaven. You understand? Because the being is suffering from within. The being is suffering from karma. The being is suffering from depression. The being is suffering from anxiety. The being is struggling. You see, the being is not going to acknowledge, the being is not going to appreciate the beauty of heaven. So it looks like if this is your concept of heaven, if this is your concept of heaven, that that heaven either would have very less impact on that person. Um, the reason I'm saying less impact, because that would disappear, that would dissipate. That's the word I'm looking for in English. That would dissipate very, very soon, or it would have zero impact. So, such a heaven is a very fragile heaven. I don't think it's the heaven the God has created. You understand? Because in heaven, if you understand what I'm saying to you, because in heaven there is no room for any type of karma. There is no room for any type of disorders. There is no room for any type of sicknesses. There is no room for any type of issues that people struggle with time to time or on the regular basis. You see why I'm saying to you, in heaven there is no room for anything like this. In heaven there is no room even for the thought. Heaven is so it, I just proved, not proved rather, but I gave you the clarity. I brought clarity. I brought clarity in your perception, and I gave you the clarity that why I find it. We are looking, we are not approving or disapproving, remember that, but why I am finding it extremely difficult to believe that heaven or hell is a physical place which exists outside of us, as you claimed in your inquiry. You said it's a physical place which exists outside of us. And after that, after bodily demise, we head into that direction. Number two reason is basically you see, the only way you even know there is distance, the only way there you only know there is time, or because you have physicality. If you are not in a physical form, if you have no certain or decided physicality, there is no distance here now. You see, and there is no time here. Now, I hope you are following what I'm saying to you. So, when one sheds the body, of what most people understand as death or the bodily demise, there is no physicality. That's the reason number two that I find it a little hard to accept. When there is no physicality, then how are you going to accomplish that you would physically go somewhere? You are saying that you are somewhere, and after that, you would physically go somewhere. How are you going to accomplish basically that when there is not even no physicality? The only way you can relate to distance, the only way you can relate to time, because there is physicality. But here we are talking about what most people understand as death or bodily demise. So there is no physicality now. You are outside of the barriers. You see the word barrier? You are outside of the barriers of physicality. So you are not going anywhere. You see, that's why I find it difficult to believe if heaven or hell is a physical place where we would be heading after the death or after the bodily demise. That's why I find it extremely difficult to believe. I have given you an example basically. If you focus on the example, what I said that it's if you focus on the example that I told you, that it's not, as I said, the person is suffering from depression, the example I gave you, and is struggling with life. And after that, when we place the person in the midst of, when we place the person in the midst of paradise, when we place the person in the midst of heaven, the person, of course, is not going to enjoy the beauty. The person, of course, is not going to acknowledge the beauty as much because the person is suffering from karma, the person is suffering from disorder, and it is from within, you see. So, a paradise or a heaven, according to you, if it does not have any impact, or if it has very less impact on a person, then this heaven or this paradise is not the creation of God. Because as I have told you, there is no, in the God's heaven, in the God's paradise, there is no room for doubts. In the God's paradise, there is no room for depression, anxiety, any type of gossips, any type of negative traits or anything. In basically in that there is no room for any of these things. And when there is no room, when a being has acquired that kind of fulfillment, when there is no room basically in the being. So even if you take the being and place it in the midst of chaos or in the midst of a very troublesome experience, that being is, it is not going to have an impact on the being. It is not going to have an impact or a serious impact on the being. You see, in other words, if the being is totally satisfied, I mean, the being is feeling joyful, the being is at peace, the being is at in the state of bliss, you see, no matter what the circumstances around are, when the being has no fear, you see, fear has no room in that heaven, basically. When the being has no fear of any type, no matter where the being is, no matter we place that being hypothetically, it would have no effect, no impact on the being. You see, so it looks like that heaven or hell, what you thought was outside of yourself, a physical place, something out there. It looks like the physical place which was outside, you thought something out there is going to have a very less impact on the person if they are dealing with the issues. And it looks like if it is going to have very less or zero impact. So it seems like it's not the creation, it's not the God's heaven, it's not the God's paradise, you see. But what you basically perceive, how you perceive yourself, you perceive everything around you. That's the whole point. Heaven, we are going to conclude now, since the time for a private meditation session is getting very close for me. We are going to conclude now that heaven or hell is not a physical place which exists somewhere out there. Heaven or hell is the state of the being. Please remember that. I repeat myself. Heaven or hell is not a physical place where one would be headed after the bodily demise when we shed our body. No, it is not. It is any action you are performing even right now, any thought which you are perceiving even right now, and how you are managing your thoughts and how you are managing your emotions, and how much karma basically you are getting rid of, and how much karma you are shedding, that is making your heaven. You see, all the actions you are performing right now, right at this second, right in this moment, is creating either your heaven or it is creating your hell. The choice is ours. You see, it applies to each one of us. I'm not just saying it is a general statement which applies to each one of us, that whatever that's why it is very significant. That's why it is very important to be fully aware and fully alert of ourselves. You understand? And that can only be achieved when we turn our attention inwards, when we are not overwhelmed and totally connected, unfortunately, with the objects, people around us, and the thoughts within us. When we have no contradiction in us, when we do not have those funny, suffocating feeling within us, you understand? When we let go of all that, and when we look at the truth through the eyes of clarity, we are creating our heaven. You see, the more karma there is, remember, I always tell you, the more karma we are sharing, the more we are gaining happiness. The more we are gaining happiness, the more we are creating heaven within us. You see, heaven and hell are the state of the beings. Please remember that. That's what I'm saying. Is the gist, is the bottom line of the inquiry you made, and this is your answer. Because I explained that through a couple of very legitimate and very rational examples, you see, that it doesn't matter what is around us. You see, when you talk about physicality, you look around and it doesn't matter what is around us. When you talk about physicality, it means you are talking about something outside of you. When you talk about physicality, it means that this is something you are aware of, you see. So when you look around, the experience is not important, nor experience can make us sad or happy, nor experience can make us believe whether we are in heaven or we are in hell. It's our inner state. You see, it's our inner state. It's all the emotions that we feel at any given moment decide our heaven or our hell. If we are feeling anxious, if we, God forbid me, have trouble, anxiety, if we are depressed, if we are struggling with life, if we are struggling with fear, if we are struggling with paranoia, then we understand that this is hell. You understand? If we are struggling with all these issues, disorders, or the karma, then the state of us, the very inner state of us, we would say, oh my God, this is not pleasant. You see, this is not pleasant. It is stopping the way it is trying to stop the very expression of my life, because the nature of life is to expand, the nature of life is to extend the but when we struggle with issues like this, when we struggle with things like that, it basically what it does, it limits the very expression. It limits the very expression of our life. So you understand that I have answered your question, that heaven or hell is not the place something outside. It's not the physicality. It's not the objects, peoples around you would decide the happiness or the state of your being. It's basically you, what you are feeling at any given moment, what you are feeling at any given second within you. Basically, that makes your heaven, and that makes your hell. That makes our heaven, that makes our hell. It's the inner state of the being. How much a being is brave, how much a being is bold, how much a being has no fear, how much a being is how much a being has no contradiction, no conflicts in them. You see why I'm saying to you? If a being does not have any type of negative traits, if the being does not have any type of karma to resolve or the issues to work out, if the being feels totally fulfilled and contented from within, the being is in heaven. Because this is because no matter what how troublesome situations are around, no matter how troublesome experiences are around, the being remains totally joyful and fulfilled. And that, my friends, I imagine, and that, my friends, I imagine, is a state of heaven. You see? So, if so, do not think that you are somewhere. And I'm not even saying I cannot tell you what to think or not think. So let me rephrase. Look, that's what I'm saying. Look what I just told you. And see if it makes any sense to you. Look what I just told you and see if it makes any sense to you. And after that, see your vote. After that, decide and see where would you vote. Now, have I brought clarity in you? Have I clarified? Have I given you rather more awareness to see much with awareness? If you understand what I'm saying to you, that whether is it is a physical place or it is your inner state of the being. You see, which one would you vote for now after hearing the words of truth and after hearing the words of wisdom? After hearing the words of awareness and pure consciousness, have I brought some more clarity in your confusion? Remember, you said you believe. I do not ask you to believe. I do not ask you to disbelieve. I always ask you to remain open. If it has a shred of truth in it, it would only make sense for you. Please remember that. So, when you acquire that kind of mind frame, when you acquire that kind of wisdom, when you acquire that kind of mind frame, when you acquire that kind of wisdom, when you acquire that kind of truth, when you have the eyes to look at the truth, you realize it would only resonate through you. When you acquire that kind of mind frame, you say, you remain open, you do not make up your mind. I am not condemning or discouraging your words, but I am just saying it would be rather a wise and a smart thing that you do not make up your mind about anything. We do not make up our mind. We do not draw conclusions. We do not form judgments. We remain totally open. And when we remain totally open, when we have not made our minds or anything like that, what happens? In the end, whatever the truth is, please remember, in the end, whatever the truth is would be clear to you. In the end, whatever the truth is would be clear to you. You see, because truth is always there. As I told you, truth does not come with words or anything like that. Truth is always there. Truth is not going anywhere, such as this moment is true. There is no way, no matter how hard you struggle or anything like that, you cannot deny this moment. And the reason you cannot deny this moment, because as I said again, this moment is real. This moment is not going. So whatever that truth is, it's always there. You see, when you bring the awareness and clarity, all you can see the truth. So if you ever want to know the truth, do not believe. If you ever want to know the truth, do not disbelieve, basically. Just remain open. Whatever the truth is would have been made clear to you. Remember that. So bring the awareness, bring the alertness, if you understand what I'm saying to you. Bring the awareness and bring the alertness in you. Bring the awareness and bring the alertness in you in such a way that you are so alert that you know what thought, what action, through what thought and what action I would accumulate more karma and I would accumulate no karma. You see, and you see, you become so aware, you become so alert enough that you know when you would accumulate either more karma or you would accumulate no karma, means zero karma. There, when the more we shed the karma, the more we are getting closer to the happiness. The goal of human life is to find happiness. The goal of human life is to find, excuse me, is to shed karma. When we shed the karma, when we find the happiness, then there is no room for us for the previous karma or what you or the separate self or the modern science or medical science understand as the disorders or the fear or the paranoia. Then there remains no room in the inner being of us. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Then there remain no doubt, there remain no room for any type of disorder or for any type of karma because it has been dissolved. Basically, it takes dedication to karma, it takes dedication to Kriya Yoga. It takes dedication to Karma Yoga. It takes time, but it is very possible. When there are no negative traits, when there are no issues that we are struggling with, the very state, the very inner state of your being is heaven. A heaven so concrete, a heaven so real, a heaven so concrete and a heaven so real that it cannot be taken away. You understand? Because there, all the karma has been resolved, all the karma has been transcended. You see what? All the karma has been resolved, all the karma has been transcended, all the karma is gone. What remains is heaven, the fundamental state of the being, the very fundamental state of the being is heaven. So what remains is heaven, the inner state of the being, not the physical place out there. Oh, by the way, while I am going, while I'm going to about to wrap up our meditation session, I just wanted to wish you today here in America. This is going to be today here in America. This is going to be our Christmas Eve. This today. And tomorrow, Saturday, we have our Christmas. So today here, it is going to be because this is very early morning right now, and it's a Friday. It's very early morning, but the great thing is I have got the day off today and tomorrow, of course, because of Christmas and stuff. So I'm very happy. I wish you a wonderful Christmas. I wish you a wonderful Merry Christmas, just in case if I do not do a retreat tomorrow, or if I decide to do a silent meditation, if you understand. So, if I decide to do a silent meditation, you see silent shh. So, if I do that tomorrow, just in case, or if I don't do a retreat or deliver a message, in that case, Merry Christmas. Of course, have a wonderful Christmas, and I wish you the peace, I wish you the happiness, I wish you the fulfillment. You see, the concrete peace that cannot be taken away. You see, and this, I hope, and may this Christmas bring you joy. May this Christmas bring you happiness. May this Christmas bring you concrete, fulfillment. You see, I wish you all the happiness in the world. But I also encourage you, I always ask you to do practical, to put efforts uh, by Kriya Yoga, by Karma Yoga, by your dedication every day, little by little. It would make, it would bring a tremendous, beautiful change in you. You understand what I'm saying? It would bring a tremendous, beautiful change in you. Everything takes time. But if you are dedicated, if you want to make the change, then you should be serious enough. If you become serious enough, you become dedicated to your practice. It doesn't have to be overly long every day, but do some meditation. I always encourage you to do that. Do some meditation, do some yoga, do some kriya every day, and see the beautiful changes it would bring in your life experience. It would free you, it would liberate you. Have a wonderful Christmas.